Welcome back, guys. I'm looking to reach 1,000 subs. Support me by clicking the subscribe button.
The queen who lost her crown in Rome. How a 19-year-old Filipino wildcard quietly broke ARYNA Sabalenka's entire season without even playing her. Stop. Right there. Before you scroll past this. Before you assume you already know this story. Before you decide you have seen enough tennis coverage this week to last you a lifetime. We need you to sit down. Because what we are about to tell you is not the version of events that the mainstream tennis media put out there. What we are about to tell you is the complete picture, the full arc, the buried details, the uncomfortable context, and the wildly underreported human drama that connected two players who never even shared a court together, but managed to define an entire season for each other anyway. One was the undisputed queen of the WTA Tour, the world #1 with a 9-match winning streak, the defending champion of multiple tournaments, the woman everyone had already mentally penciled in as the favorite for every title from here to Paris. The other was a 19-year-old wildcard from the Philippines who arrived at the 2025 Miami Open ranked 140th in the world, with a career record of 2 wins and 14 losses on the WTA Tour, and almost nobody outside of her home country had any idea what was about to happen. Welcome to the story of Rome, 2025. Welcome to the story of ARYNA Sabalenka and Alexandra Ela, two players whose paths collided in ways the scoreboard could not fully capture and whose stories became permanently intertwined across a stretch of weeks that neither of them will ever forget. This is the version they did not show you on the highlights reel. And it starts not in Rome, but 6 weeks earlier on the hard courts of Miami, where the world order of women's tennis was quietly, definitively, and spectacularly rearranged. Let us set the stage properly, because the context here is everything. Heading into the 2025 Miami Open, ARYNA Sabalenka was operating on a different plane from every other player on the women's tour. She had just claimed the Indian Wells title, was on a 9-match winning streak at WTA 1000 events, and walked into Miami as the defending champion. She was not simply the #1 seed. She was the overwhelming favorite, the player everyone was trying to beat, the yardstick against which every performance in the draw was being measured. She was, by every conceivable metric, exactly where a world #1 is supposed to be. Dominant, confident, and fully in command of his season's narrative. The Sunshine Double, titles at both Indian Wells and Miami back-to-back, was sitting right in front of her, and it looked like it was hers to take. Meanwhile, on the other side of the sporting universe, Alexandra Ela had just arrived in Miami on a wild card and was trying to win a match. Not trying to make history. Not trying to shift the power dynamics of professional tennis. Not trying to become a symbol of anything. She was just trying to string together back-to-back wins for the first time in her entire WTA Tour career. She had managed just 2 wins on tour going into that tournament. She had never beaten a player ranked inside the top 40. She was 19 years old, trained at the Rafael Nadal Academy in Mallorca, representing the Philippines on the biggest hard-court stages she had ever seen, and her presence in the main draw was a wild-card gift from a tournament that had a hunch about her fan base and her potential. What happened over the following 10 days in Miami was one of the most extraordinary single-tournament runs by a wild-card in the history of women's professional tennis. Full stop. No asterisks. No qualifications. Alexandra Ela, ranked 140th in the world, went through that draw like a wrecking ball wrapped in composed, devastating, technically brilliant tennis. She opened with a win over Katie Volinets. Then she ran into Elena Ostapenko, the 2017 Roland Garros champion, a former Grand Slam winner with a massive game and the kind of experience that absolutely crushes inexperienced teenagers. Ela was down 4-0 in the opening set. She came all the way back. She won 7-6, 7-5. One Grand Slam champion down. The tennis world noticed. Social media noticed. The Philippines noticed in a way the country had perhaps never noticed a sporting event before in its collective life. And someone else's story. Ela walked onto the court and beat her 6-4, 6-2. Not a close match. Not a clutch performance born of desperation. A clinical, controlled dismantling of a Grand Slam champion by a teenager who had not beaten a top 40 player on tour until that very week. She became the first Filipino player ever to defeat a Grand Slam champion at a tour-level event in the Open era. 2 Grand Slam champions down. And then, the one that made the entire world lean forward simultaneously, Iga Swiatek, the former world number 1. 5 Grand Slam titles. One of the most dominant players the sport had seen in a generation. Quarterfinals. Against a wildcard ranked 140th. This was supposed to be a formality. This was supposed to be the moment where the fairy tale ended and the established hierarchy reasserted itself with polite, clinical efficiency. Ila won. 6-2. 7-5. She came from 4-2 down in the second set, and she closed it out. She was in tears when the final ball went long. She looked up at the scoreboard to make sure she had not imagined it. She said afterward, in one of the most honest post-match interviews you will ever see from a teenage athlete, that she had tried to soak every single moment in because nothing like this had ever happened to her before, and she wanted to keep it permanently locked in her mind. She became the first wildcard in WTA history to defeat 3 Grand Slam champions in straight sets at a single event. She became the second lowest-ranked woman ever to reach the Miami semifinals. She became the first Filipino to reach a WTA 1000 semifinal. She jumped overnight from number 140 to number 75 in the world, becoming the first Filipino ever to crack the WTA top 100. She earned more prize money in that single tournament than she had in her entire career combined up to that point. Her semifinal against Jessica Pegula ended after midnight. 3 sets. A comeback from a set and a breakdown. Pegula, a seasoned top 5 player, needed every ounce of experience she had to get through it and said as much publicly afterward. Even in defeat, the performance was extraordinary. The story should have ended there, neatly, with a beautiful bow on it. A wonderful, history-making run. A perfect sporting moment. An inspirational tale of a young woman from the Philippines storming through one of the biggest tournaments in the world. Lovely. Memorable. Filed away. Except it was not done, because ARYNA Sabalenka was also at Miami. And ARYNA Sabalenka was paying attention. She was winning. She was doing what world number 1s do, navigating the draw with power and precision, advancing through rounds, defending her title. She reached the final and won it, completing the sunshine double she had been targeting. By every objective measure, Miami belonged to Sabalenka. She got the title. She got the ranking points. She got the trophy. But even as Sabalenka was winning matches, the tournament's logistical and emotional center of gravity was bending quietly, unmistakably, in another direction. Tournament director James Blake had given an interview before Miami began. He spoke about how he was going to handle the scheduling this year. And what he said was not about Sabalenka. It was not about Swiatek. He talked about Alexandra Ila and Brazilian star João Fonseca, explaining that the previous year tournament organizers had failed to anticipate the enormous fan bases these 2 young players brought with them. Fans had been left watching from outside arenas, unable to get in, and he was not going to repeat that mistake. He said Ila and Fonseca needed to be on center court because they had so many fans worldwide, and that their matches would feel like home games for supporters who had traveled from the Philippines and Brazil. When Sabalenka was asked about scheduling decisions being made around her match time and her stadium assignment, she expressed genuine shock. She said she had never dealt with anything like it. She could not understand the logic of reorganizing court logistics around other players while her match was shuffled around the options. The world number 1, the defending champion, the player who had just arrived to win her second straight Miami title, found that the scheduling conversation at her own tournament was happening around someone else entirely. She was not happy, and while she chose her public words carefully, the underlying dynamic was unmistakable. The Queen had arrived expecting the throne.
Welcome back, guys. I'm looking to reach 1,000 subs. Support me by clicking the subscribe button.